1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, it's the Hake Report, the Hake Report, la la la. Oh, it's the Hake Report, the Hake Report, la la la.
Hey guys!
Oh, it's the Hake Report, the Hake Report, la la la. Oh, it's the Hake Report, the Hake Report, la la la.
Irreverent! Irreverent was the word I was looking for. Yesterday on my show, Sunday, the Hake Report is on Sundays on my channels, right? Monday through Friday on Jesse's channels, 9 a.m. Pacific time, and 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time right now on Hake's channels. And I was looking and looking and looking in my mind and amongst the helpers here for the word to describe how Nick Fuentes was talking about the Holocaust. And the word is irreverent. He was being irreverent about it. And irreverent is a word used by journalists, writers, people like that, movie and comedian reviewers who describe funny movies and funny people who are not, that's funny. Yeah. Who are not necessarily the most like respectful or paying homage to the holy cows, sacred cows in the culture. And one of those sacred cows is you're not supposed to question the Holocaust. And he was being irreverent about it. And that was bad news for anybody, boomers especially, who were brainwashed to be like, oh, any questioning is terrible. But it doesn't mean that he doesn't know the difference between right and wrong. And so I was kind of going off about that. But I couldn't think of the word, so I was calling it, it's not disrespectful, it's not blah, 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 it's irreverent. Anyways, I just wanted to clarify that because I couldn't think of the word, it was bugging me, and so I kept on like Googling different things, and then finally it came to me. I don't even think I found it on Google. Anyways, so yes, it is fine to question the facts around the Holocaust because we're fed a whole lot of fake facts all the time in the present day times. People live in a totally different reality, so who knows what the truth is? And so whatever. It's not even really a big deal, in my opinion. But I wanted to talk a little bit before I get to your calls. You can call in 888-775-3773. It is Monday, November 4th, 2019. It's already 10 a.m., past 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We fell back, and I didn't even notice. Joel, did you notice? I guess I kind of noticed because instead of like naturally being like fully awake at 4:20, I was fully awake at 3:20. So, anyways, but before I get to you guys, oh, you went to bed later. Yeah, I went to bed kind of late on Sunday, and 6 a.m. still felt pretty much like 6 a.m. Maybe it was a little easier. Anyways, Sunday is the latest I get up, 6 a.m. On Saturday, it's 5, a little before 5 or after. And then Monday through Friday, it's about 4, give or take. First alarm goes off at 3:45. And then last alarm that I have to be up is like a little after 4:15. But anyways, this Kanye West thing, I still haven't been paying any real attention to it other than that Daily Beast article that I read, because you guys have probably heard that Kanye, and some of you may know a lot more than I do about this whole thing, but he's been holding these so-called Sunday services. And it's kind of funny because Bond has been having Sunday services for the last 10, 15, or, actually 30 years, really. But the 2008 Sunday services that we started streaming, I've been calling them Sunday services because that's what we were calling them back then. When we were streaming it, not on YouTube, but on bondinfo.org, which is now the same thing as rebuildingtheman.com. Easier, more logical web address to remember, don't you think? Rebuildingtheman.com, as opposed to bondinfo.org. It's nice, still a nice web address, but that's what they were using, bondinfo.org, and it was streaming to a video, streaming video on there. And so we've been processing those videos and putting them up on like a weekly basis, Sunday services. And those are really nice. But Kanye West has his own version where they do basically gospel choir type stuff. He raps some of his classic songs, some of them, and sometimes makes them more Christian, and has this, at least at 2 events, had this white preacher from Newhall, who talks about, according to the Daily Beast, liberal black female writer, he's talked about forgiveness, didn't have a whole lot of Bible verses to supposedly back it up or something like that. That black woman who was writing that Daily Beast article seemed to be very nasty, comparing it to slavery and stupid stuff. But seems like the pastor might have had a good message, talking about forgiveness. Not harping on the Bible, that's fine. But I saw this headline from DISRN, Discern, right? I think that's how you spell it. And it was linked from Drudge about over 1,000 commit lives to Christ at Kanye West Sunday service in Baton Rouge, according to a pastor. And that pastor was Kervin Brewington, and he shared this Instagram post, photograph and whole thing about how he got to experience his Sunday service with his wife over at Bethany Church in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And he said that he was so excited and impressed that 1,000 people showed up or raised their hand at the altar call, and he called it an altar call. And that's such a Christian thing. Like, at the end of your sermon, you usually say, anybody who wants to come up here and accept the Lord Jesus, blah, 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 into your heart, something, then come forward. And so 1,000 people raised their hand. I don't know if they came forward. Maybe they just wanted to meet Kanye. I don't know. But it's like, whatever, it's cool. But I don't necessarily buy it. I kind of roll my eyes when they say such and such huge number really committed their lives to Christ. I don't buy it. People commit their lives to Christ all the time, and then they still live the same. So they may kind of be excited about it, but I see it just the same way, and I don't take this any less seriously or more seriously than the Harvest Crusades. With Pastor Greg Laurie has been doing these Harvest Crusades, and Greg Laurie's, one of his proteges, killed himself. So, committed suicide. And then you had he was a father of like 3 beautiful white babies. Such a shame. We covered that story where that guy, he always struggled with depression, but he was a pastor in his 30s or maybe 30 years old. So that's Greg Laurie's protege. He's committing suicide. Meanwhile, he's holding these Harvest Crusades, supposedly saving a whole bunch of souls. And I don't think any differently also about the Billy Graham Crusades. I wasn't around for them, but I know that he supposedly was maybe part of like another great awakening or something like that of Christianity. I don't really necessarily buy all that stuff. I'm leery about it. And because I grew up Christian, right? And I went to like these Christian family camps and stuff like that, and going to church and all that. And sometimes I would get like these emotional times when I wanted to be serious about being a Christian and stuff like that. Stay out of hell, guilty over sin, and things like that. But it's not necessarily real. It's nice. It's cool. It's definitely good to be a Christian in namesake and be trying to do the right thing, even if you're not real about it. That is cool. I do respect that. And that's the best that we can do until we become real Christians, right? But still, it's not something to get overexcited about. So, and this guy, I think he is a pastor, Kervin Brewington. Maybe we should get him on the Jesse Lee Peterson show. Jesse has interviewed many, many pastors, and I started putting out 2007 interviews and others from the Jesse Lee Peterson radio show when it was audio only. And he's interviewed a bunch of pastors. So we have a lot to put out there. I've been putting some of those out there on the Jesse Lee Peterson channel. I'm going to get to your calls. And then I'm going to talk about this. People want Trump removed. The disrespect for the police. Ridiculous disrespect for police over in New York City. Trump called it out. Good for him. But it's a mess. Let me quickly get to Derek out of California. First time caller, Derek, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Right on. Hey, I just wanted to comment on the Kanye thing.
Yeah. Have you kept up with any of it?
Yeah, I looked into it a little bit. Remember that guest Jesse had, Jeff Durbin?
Yeah.
He actually interviewed the pastor that does the Kanye service stuff.
Okay.
And it was a pretty cool interview. I didn't watch the whole thing, but like they were saying, it's regardless if people get saved there, which would be cool, as long as the gospel is getting sent out there, you know what I mean? The seeds are going to get planted.
Yeah. That's fair.
At first, I was skeptical. I was like, he's probably just doing it for fame and stuff. But then I started thinking, I was like, well, the gospel is getting out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting. Jeff Durbin is something else. Interesting.
He's amazing.
He's got some issues, but he's nice. So, did you hear his album?
So I heard the one with Kirk Franklin on it.
Oh gosh, him.
I think that
He's
guy
on it.
Chance the Rapper was on it. It made me. It really showed me like.
Oh,
okay. I used to
that's
like
old.
Kirk Franklin a lot when I was younger. You know what I mean? Because that's like cool gospel. Like
That's an older song, Derek, right?
I think it's like within the last year or two, maybe. But there was cussing on it.
Okay.
And I'm like, what is this? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Kirk Franklin cusses? Kirk Franklin, for those of you guys who don't know,
on it, but
Kirk Franklin is a gospel singer. Kirk Franklin is a gospel singer, guys. Supposedly. And he's got issues too.
Yeah.
Anyways, man, I appreciate it, Derek. Take care.
Yes, sir. Likewise.
All right. Oh, man, I'm laughing at this call. Lynn out of Chicago, first time caller. Lynn, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing fine. What's up?
Yeah, earlier I called in about how in Chicago they had a kid come down to the mayor's office dressed in drag as the mayor of Chicago.
So a male underage guy dressed up as a female, the lesbian Mayor Lightfoot.
Yeah, the just so you guys know, the Chicago police, they refer to the mayor as Groot.
Brute?
That's their nickname. Yes.
Brute?
No. Groot as the one of the Avengers.
Groot. Groot.
Yeah, that's what they refer to her
She
as.
does look a little bit like that. That's funny. Is that a disrespectful name? Is that an irreverent name?
Yeah.
That's funny, man.
Yeah, they had on the news. They brought this kid out, and I'm like looking at this kid. I'm like, what? And then they're saying how this kid was raised. I'm like, oh God. I'm like, can't they put on the news? This is not even news.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm just going to watch the BBC from now on.
Yeah, that's awful.
You can't watch this.
So was he paying respect to Lori Lightfoot by doing this, or was he?
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah, they even had his mom. His mom even commented, like, she
Black?
was saying something. Yeah.
Oh man.
And I was like, and then I was thinking about Jesse, and I was like, where's his kid's father at?
Yeah, exactly. Nowhere to be found. That's why Chicago elected a lesbian black female for mayor, because the fathers aren't around. The fathers.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm reading story after story of these black men not falling for this homosexual stuff, like the mayor from South Bend, Indiana, Pete Buttigieg. I mean, they're still falling for the Democrats, so they're dumb. They're still idiots, but they're not falling for this homosexual young guy who's like pretending like he's legitimate and everybody else is pretending he's legitimate because they don't really necessarily fall for that stuff. That's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's entirely ridiculous. I'm like, you know, and the other thing I was going to tell you guys, I went on eBay and I bought a Trump stamp. It says Trump 2020.
Yeah.
And everywhere I go, that I know that there's like people who are going to get triggered. I stamp it, and you know the thing is you can't like tear it off and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
I also went on eBay and they had these stickers I bought for $1.
So you're tagging? You're doing these pro-Trump tagging, basically?
Yes. Yes. I've been
Wow.
putting stickers everywhere. I put them on the ceiling at McDonald's, and people. I'm not kidding. People jump up and they like tear off the stickers. Crazy.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting, man. How do you spell your first name?
Oh, Lynn.
Okay. All right. Appreciate it. Just wanted to make sure.
Because I'm a guy, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not like one of those trans guys or something.
No, I know.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, if you look back, Mr. Belvedere was named also Lynn.
Mr. Belvedere, his name was Lynn?
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember that TV show. I didn't like that show. It was too...
Yeah, me neither. Yeah, I don't think he was I don't think he gave a good reputation to my name either. It's kind of...
Right.
It was kind of weird,
I just didn't like it because it wasn't as exciting for a kid to watch, right? I mean, I would watch it sometimes, but it was kind of like having to watch... I don't know. There were some other TV shows I didn't like watching, but I would sit there and watch it, I guess, since it was TV. But that's funny. I appreciate it, Lynn. Well, don't get caught tagging with the pro-Trump stamps.
No, the thing is, you know, like I usually go in there and I stamp it, and I have a fake Snapchat thing, and I post it on there, and I come back like hours later, look at all the comments, people get all angry and stuff.
So is this in like subways over there in Chicago, or where are you doing this?
You mean like the stickers? I post the stickers in McDonald's, and like with the
man.
I do that in college. I just like if they have like some kind of democratic like paper, you know, that are posted like talking about this protest.
Yeah.
I'll walk by it and I'll stamp it, and then like later on, like I'll see the person tore it off.
Right.
Those even one time we're handing in homework for I'm a computer science major, and I you know, like no one was looking, I stamped this guy's homework with a Trump stamp and I turned it in. And then later on, he got it, and he was like so angry. And then later on, I'm like, bro, I'm like, you voted for Trump, didn't you? And he's like, yeah, I voted for Trump. And I was like, what? I'm like, why did you get angry for?
Yeah.
Well, man, you know, I can't like have people like, no, I voted for Trump.
Oh, so he did support Trump. That's funny. Well, Lynn, I mean, don't be getting yourself vandalizing people and stuff. But anyways.
Yeah.
How are you black?
No, I'm actually white.
Okay, all right. Just curious. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Did we get a picture of Lori Lightfoot, the Lori Lightfoot drag kid? Oh no, that's.
Yeah. This is what the world's coming to.
No. Okay, that's enough. I appreciate that, Lynn. Thank you for the tip, man. That's terrible. That is disgusting. Yeah, fathers, man. All right, take care.
All right. You take care.
You as well. Let me quickly get to DJ out of Chicago. DJ, how are you?
Hey, man. DJ Hardmouse.
Hardmouse. Thanks, man. First time caller on my show. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, the Hake report. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's pretty good, man. I enjoy it.
Thank you.
But, yeah, man, I want to talk about this whole Holocaust that, that's been being claimed since World War II, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically leftover war propaganda. During World War I, they tried to allege the same thing, that there was gas chambers that were being used, and 6 million of them were killed, right? So
in World War I, they said that too? You know, man,
exactly,
that's why I just take everything with a grain of salt. I just don't necessarily buy it.
Right.
And we know that these people are liars, so it's really
totally
irrelevant.
And I'm not, and to be honest, I'm not even like blaming or talking about like Jews or anything. I'm talking about specifically the communist, atheist, Bolshevik Jews that invented communism and, declared war on Germany and all the white people in Europe. Because when they were coming over there, it was similar to the refugee crisis that we have going on now.
Oh, really? That makes a little bit of sense. Yeah. And
yeah, it really does. And, after World War II is when they established the EU, the European Union, who quickly made it illegal to investigate the Holocaust.
Isn't that the United Nations?
No, the EU. The European
EU is
Union.
that old? I thought that the EU was kind of founded more recently. Because I remember they started making euros or euros. Remember those euro dollars? Crazy.
Right. Yeah, that came about more recently, but they were all put into place. And then they established when the communists took over Germany, they basically slaughtered and raped like every German. And
when was that?
Right after Stalin took over.
Oh, okay.
So during World War II. My timeline's kind of messed up. I don't know. But
it's and the EU is crap. It's a terrible thing to be part of, and shame on the UK for ever getting in there in the first place. And they're so weak.
Right.
The UK doesn't even have the freedom of speech anymore.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
It's crazy.
It's insane.
They really don't. And honestly, if you're in the United States, it's legal right now, like barely legal for me to talk about or investigate, things like the Holocaust or, any type of like mass hoaxes or conspiracy theories like that. If you're in Canada or something, or I think just about anywhere in Europe, you will do hard time just for investigating it or writing a book about it.
That's crazy. It's ridiculous. They're acting like suggesting that the truth isn't what's being told is going to start another Holocaust or something like that. When in reality, their squelching it is causing more resentment and suspicion and everything else than if they were just to allow freedom of speech.
Right.
Such a shame.
Right. And
it's so backwards.
It's a money-making scam too, because they have Holocaust museums and they sell tons of stuff.
Right.
And they still receive reparations from the Holocaust from like Germany, and I want to say Italy, I'm not sure, but definitely Germany still pays them money for that.
Yeah. I'm not really even into it, and it just makes me leery about it when I see headlines like I saw in July of 2018, where Mark Zuckerberg said that he's not censoring every Holocaust questioning or so-called Holocaust denier Facebook page because not everyone is intentionally getting it wrong, he said. And that's a very reasonable way to put it, right? If he really believes that it happened the way he's told, he's Jewish, right? And he says, I do find it offensive, but I'm not going to censor them all because they don't all purposely so-called get it wrong. Such a reasonable statement, and he even had to walk that back because they're saying, any questioning of it is ultimately from a white supremacist anti-Jew source. And a lot of those, they're not no such thing as white supremacists, right? But a lot of the anti-Jewish people do get in on this. But you're only making the normal people who aren't even really that interested in this whole question leery about you by squelching it. It's so dumb. And then then you have people like ZOA, Z-O-A, Zionist Organization of America or something like that. I had a tweet that I put out on my show about Nick Fuentes. They're calling him an anti-Semite or something because he makes fun of. Yeah, they're making fun of.
Fuentes is like Ben Shapiro light.
He's like this nice kid, and he made light. He was irreverent of the Holocaust, right? He compared it to like baking cookies, and his point was, or the point of the person who gave the super chat was that he didn't have, like, that it wouldn't have been possible for 6 million of them to be killed. Show the Zoa one.
Right.
Show the Zoa tweet, Joel. This tweet, and they pretend like they're supposed to be strengthening American-Israeli relations, right? But Zoa urges Twitter to remove white supremacist and Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes. I call them evil. Show the show their Twitter bio, because their Twitter bio, they say Zoa works to strengthen U.S.-Israel relations through educational activities, public affairs programs, and educating Capitol Hill, and by combating anti-Israel bias. But they're encouraging it by trying to squelch this guy's freedom of speech. They make me not, okay, I know not to support Zoa. They're just like the ADL. They're very defamatory people.
Right, or SPLC, who I believe got shut down due to internal corruption or something. I don't know.
The evil thing about SPLC is the FBI used to refer to them, use them as a reference for who's a hate group and who's not. So evil. That just shows you that the FBI has a strongly liberal, anti-American, anti-white bias, the FBI.
Yeah, the FBI, may as well call them the Hillary Clinton PR team.
Yeah.
I mean, they're awful, man. They're just 100% about trying to help, Antifa and the extreme left-wingers, and they're just going after our people for just freedom of speech, for making jokes and pointing things out, I mean, all we're doing is talking, and they just want to shut everybody down. It's a shame, man. But I'm not gonna take up too much of your time, Hake.
I appreciate it, DJ.
They'll probably already try to shut you down for this.
Take care, Hard Mouse. Appreciate you, man.
Later, brother.
All right. Let me get to Kimra out of South Carolina. He wants to talk about Kanye West and the fake Christians. Kimra.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Wherever you're at.
Yeah, it's
good,
morning.
Thank you. Okay. So, yeah, I was calling in reference to the Kanye West conversation.
Yeah.
Because he's been converted as a Christian, and he's doing his best to spread the word. And y'all were talking about the people and wondering and if they were really, truly saved. And a lot of them probably aren't. But I have a couple scriptures that come to mind when a new conversion is made towards Christ. And it's basically in Matthew 13:19. It talks about the one that hears the word of the kingdom and understands it not, then Satan comes to snatch it away.
I thought about that.
When you're saved, it's important to get into God's word and teach yourself, be taught and study his word so the devil can't come and steal it away. Also, even Paul mentioned it in 1 Thessalonians 2:18 when he was talking to the folks, and he said, but Satan hindered us. So everyone needs to keep in mind that when you receive Christ, the devil's going to try to snatch it away from you. So that was my point.
People, I think that's why Jesse recommends people pray and stay with it, because a lot of people get real excited about it and then they give up praying or whatever, and then they just fall away. And Jesus described a bunch of different circumstances, some that grew up amongst the thorns and then the pressures of life choked it out. Some of them fell on the rocks and they sprouted right away, and then they died right away because they had no root. So I don't know if it's that they need to get into the so-called word, meaning the Bible. That is good to read the Bible, but that's not what saves you either.
Instruction, but prayer and a personal relationship with Christ is what is important. And I love Jesse's prayer. I do the silent prayer. Yeah. And also, I'm going to, if I can, deter to a different subject. I've been listening to him for about a year and a half now, and I heard a man call in. He said something about, I called my dad to ask him for forgiveness, and he didn't forgive me. Now what do I do? And Jesse told him, I didn't tell you to call and ask for forgiveness. The Bible says to forgive. Well, I had a similar situation with my mother, and I had forgiven her in my heart, so I thought. But 15 years of her not talking to me, I called her this year, and I told her I forgive her. And I'm telling you, it lifted the rest of the weight off of me. I
Yeah.
am completely free. Of course, she had nothing to say, and still won't speak to me. But that's on her.
Yep.
It's my job to forgive, and I still forgive her. I still do. I love her, and I pray for her. So
Yeah.
anyway, thank you for your show.
Appreciate it, Kimra.
Just wanted to point that out. So everyone needs to pray.
Yeah.
Pray and draw close to God, and He'll draw close to you.
Thank you, Kimra. Take care.
You have a good day. Bye.
You as well. So, about this Bible reading, people get sucked into the intellectualism. That's partly why I joined Jesse in the warning about getting way too into the Bible, because people just become I've known a lot of atheists who went from atheist to Christian to all kinds of stuff. They get into young earth and everything, but then they get into thinking that the Bible is saying that it's something that it doesn't, and they get into really they're still believing in their own intellect. They were intellectual atheists and they became intellectual Christians, and they still aren't totally living it all the way. So that's why I warn about that. Whatever, Marcus Jones. Marcus Jones criticizing me, always referencing Jesse, and then he put a facepalm, right? Be your own man, Hake. Whatever, Marcus. But I saw this YouTube comment that came in about and I already visited this before, why did Hake edit out the Israel questions? Hope Jesse isn't taking money from them. Stupid. So, because I put out this video, Hake take on Turning Point mess, which was from my, Wednesday show last week, where I was talking about those boys, those young men, questioning Charlie Kirk and Rob Smith, the Turning Point guys, who are pro-gay, pro-immigration, anti-white. They believe in racism. They believe in so-called homophobia and all that stuff. And I was very straightforward I didn't get those Israel questions because one of them was very vague. What would you do? Would you support a measure that benefited America 100%, but was detrimental to Israel? I'm like, okay, be more specific. That's not specific or interesting enough for me. And then the other question was about the dancing Israelis, which was funny, and it was interesting because I did end up Googling the dancing Israelis and found out that there were some, 5 Israelis who some people witnessed. There isn't video of it, but they were supposedly dancing and high-fiving or something and taking video as the World Trade Center those planes got smashed into them. And so that part was interesting and it's suspicious. Fox News covered the incident, and it was very suspicious. It was almost like they had foreknowledge of the event. And I heard from a liberal professor, by the way, speaking of that 9/11 whole situation, which I'm not that into, but just speaking about it, this liberal professor said that Bush knew 8 hours before the attack happened that they either had hijacked the planes or were planning to do this. 8 hours, right? And so he was at that kids reading to black kids or something like that. He was I'm looking at Joel, and Joel would have been 10 or so. 12 maybe. Anyways, I remember Bush was in a classroom as kids were reading, and he was being told about the attack. They flew the plane into the building, sir. And supposedly he handled it all well. I don't know. But anyways, he knew about it prior to, according to what my liberal professor is, and he's like a historian, meaning that he's a liberal, intellectual, brainwashed, anti-white person, right? But it's all who knows what really happened, in my opinion. Because I noticed that a lot of the conspiracy theorists, I just call them that denotatively, right? With no connotations. But the conspiracy theorist people, the ones that say about 9/11, inside job and things like that, it very well may be, I don't know, but stick with what you know, right? I don't like assuming, just because these 5 Israelis were doing that, that means Israel was behind it. That means Netanyahu was behind it. That's crazy. I don't know that. I mean, it may be, I say it's crazy, but that's not proven. Let's just say that. And who cares? Bush did 9/11. It says not Marcus Jones. Anyways, guys, speaking of stuff that we actually know happens, is the disrespect of police. And that is, we do know for a fact that that is encouraged by the media, by people like CNN, people like probably the New York Times. I don't really pay enough attention to New York Times to know, to be able to call up an example, but I know that they believe in racism. The New York Times aren't they the ones that smeared, what's his name? That guy from Iowa, Congressman Steve King from Iowa. The New York Times smeared him because he wanted to defend Western civilization. And the stupid people, the ADL types, the SPLC types, like to pretend that references to Western civilization is automatically so-called white supremacist, because a lot of the white nationalists talk about Western civilization, which white people, for the most part, built. And so they smeared him as saying Western civilization or something like that, and white nationalism, white supremacy. How did these things become hateful or derogatory? And from that, the whole stupid Congress censored him, and meanwhile they let Ilhan Omar skate. She was never censored. Dumb. And they stripped him of being on any committees either. And he was our best congressman in the whole U.S. Congress. And he even voted against himself, to be honest. Because of that, he's a boomer. Brainwashing about stupid imaginary white supremacy. And so, according to CBS New York, an NYPD vehicle, you know how in New York City, the cops have been getting dunked with a whole bunch of, they've been getting water thrown at them and stuff like that? Well, now they're getting cracked eggs, rotting food, and burning trash, according to witnesses and video, put on their police cars. Disrespect, even as they're serving these so-called domestic violence calls and things like that. In these areas, they get a lot of 911 calls, and this is taking it away from them. These distractions are taking them away from responding to calls. So, you know that old rap song, 911 is a joke in your town? From Public Enemy, that stupid guy that dates people. What's his name? Flava Flav. They just, dude, such disrespect for the police. And this is encouraged by the liberal media. And to be honest, even I remember, who's that woman who used to be on Fox News? And then she started to hate Trump, and then she left and then started trashing Fox News, I think. Megyn Kelly. She even pretended that, she even said, and I quote, or I paraphrase, police brutality is a real thing. No, it's not. It's not. Black brutality is, human being brutality is, police brutality is not a common phenomenon. You can say excessive force is, becoming more common, I guess, because people are, for one, the people are more out of control. And for two, some of those people are police that are becoming out of control. So, and then they're having like these female officers who shouldn't even be officers serving. What a mess. But just disgusting stuff going on. And Trump tweeted about this. He tweeted on, I think, a Friday, that he's moving from New York to Florida. And he's saying New York has a lot of problems, but scumbags like the mayor, Bill de Blasio, and Governor Andrew Cuomo are doing nothing to solve the problems. They're just too busy attacking Trump. And then you have Manhattan district attorneys and people like that going after Trump for his tax returns, as if it's, who cares? It's just anything that they can dig up to scrutinize and try to make Trump look bad from people that don't even know really what's going on. But he said, our great police are being disrespected, even with water dumped on them, because a mayor and governor just don't have their backs. And that's true. That's what the president declared. New York's finest must be cherished, respected, and loved. So at least we have one decent person in the government, seemingly, right? And then there are witnesses that don't want to identify these people. You know that they're black. I'm pretty sure anyways, right? If it turns out to be Mexicans or whites, I'll be sure to tell it. But I'm pretty sure that they're black who are doing these things for the most part. Because blacks are the most brainwashed against police. It's in their popular music. F the police. It's been in the music for decades. And then they pretend that it's about their art and their culture. Ridiculous. Let me get to some more calls quickly before we finish up. Travis out of Charlotte, North Carolina. How are you, Travis?
Hey, what's up, James Hake, the Hake Report.
Not much.
Hey, I had to call in because I heard you say something that, just made me call. So you said that Kanye, this is about Kanye, so
Yeah.
you said that Kanye, there was a lot of fake Christians.
Yes.
I have to disagree with that because if you listen to what he says, it seems like he was struggling with something. I don't know how the music industry is, it's fairly corrupt.
Yeah.
But it seemed like he was struggling with something and he was trying to, voice his opinion and how God has changed him. But I don't know if I can say it's fake. What do you think about it?
I wasn't necessarily calling Kanye West a fake Christian. I know that he has pretty recently, or say in the last year, promoted like pornography and stuff like that on these channels, on these late night shows. And so
he had the thorns around his head. I didn't like that either.
Oh,
That's
I didn't see that one.
Turned me off of him. Yeah, he had some kind of magazine with the crown around his head, but I think I think what he's doing is it's not fake. I think he's trying to like make up for all the wrongdoing.
Yeah, maybe
he actually
so.
mentioned it in his song.
I'm just saying about this 1,000 people that responded to an altar call. I say most of that is not real. I'm not criticizing Kanye. I like the guy. I think he's off in some ways, and he's on it in others. And I respect how he does his own thing. I really like that about him. And I love how he and Trump really get along. I noticed about Trump, before I knew that Kanye was even a fan of Trump, that Trump said at one point when it was very popular to hate on Kanye, that he had no problem with Kanye West. And that was a nice thing to say. And that was something I learned from Trump, that you don't attack people who aren't attacking you. You don't fight against people who aren't necessarily fighting with you at the moment. You will fight against people in order to achieve a goal, such as the presidency, right? He was going after Jeb Bush when it was time to go after Jeb Bush. He went after Mitt Romney when it was time to go after Mitt Romney. He's constantly going after the media because the media is constantly anti-American.
Right.
And they're anti-Trump, but that's anti-American.
Yeah.
And I like that about Trump and Kanye.
Yeah, I think what Kanye was saying was it's actually a great thing that God is using him because he does not hold his tongue.
Yeah, that's cool too.
I thought he was going to get banned from the CD because he mentioned Jesus Christ, his name. I don't know if I can say that on you. Hoping that your show don't get banned, but. He mentioned his name 10 times in one song, and I was like, "Oh my God!"
Oh, somebody told me about JPMs. That's funny, because I was talking about JPMs because I grew up on Christian music, right? My older siblings, my parents, my mother, my older siblings, all listened to Christian music like Chuck Girard, Petra, Michael W. Smith, Amy Grant, and these other ones.
And it's such a shame that Christian music has been stale. It's I hate to say it, but the way the twist he puts on it, and he actually puts God and Jesus' name in and everything, and worship, he actually brings it back out. When I've been listening to Christian artists for years, and it seems very secular.
Yeah.
But his CD is not. It doesn't seem secular. It seems like he's really just giving it all, giving God all the glory. But I just wanted to get your take on it. I hope he comes on Jesse's.
Yeah, the Fallen
show.
State. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
I appreciate it, Travis. Thank you, man.
All right. Have a good one, Hake.
You too.
Bye.
I was talking about JPMs. So that's a term left by, I think the people that grew up on Christian music, and then came out of it, like started listening to real music, for lack of a better word, and they would talk about how people are kind of this dumb that they will say, how many JPMs does it have, almost? JPMs is like, you know how BPM is a term for beats per minute? Well, JPM is Jesus per minute. And it's because, like, if it's not Christian if it doesn't mention the name of Jesus. But people actually do that with Jesse in his church services, because Jesse's not constantly saying, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. So they're like, how come Jesse never mentions Jesus? When he does, but he just doesn't repeat it constantly like the fake Christians, like the emotional, intellectual Christians. And so it's just kind of funny that people fall for this thing. And it's funny that it is the intellectuals who fall for that too. I guess because they believe in their own minds rather than what's right. But the chat is funny, man. You know, this border wall situation? It's like the media is constantly trying to undermine Trump and his support and undermine America, really. The Washington Post came out with this article on Saturday. I just read it this morning in the top of the second hour news. Hake news, not fake news. Well, maybe this was fake news, right? The smugglers, drug smugglers, illegals are sawing through supposedly new sections of our border wall, America's border wall. But what do they call it? Trump's border wall. And I haven't seen proof that this was the case, that it was actually Trump's border wall that is being sawn through. But smuggling gangs in Mexico have repeatedly, supposedly, according to Washington Post, sawed through, I don't know which one it is, new sections of President Trump's border wall in recent months by using power tools, right? And battery-powered power tools even. It's reciprocating saw. But they can cut through the base of the bollard of the things and then push through, because the thing is 30 feet up. The top of the other connection point for this bollard is 30 feet up. So it just kind of bends it, and then they can go through. And then they'll cut little holes and put their cocaine things through. And they're saying that, other agents are not supposed to talk about this, because then you're spreading the way to cut through, right? You're spreading the way to get through the border wall. It's like they are cheering on these people and trying to get them to do it. Trying to get them to cut through the border wall. And this isn't the only thing that we should be doing. We should have the wall, and we should also, maybe we should have more connection points so that when they push it, they're getting up against something that's only a few more feet up rather than all the way up. Maybe that would help. But that's what the design was. Maybe they can reinforce it in certain ways. But do we have any I wonder if I have any pictures of this. It's crazy. These pictures that I saw on Drudge are like crazy. See if you can pull up any, Joel. But if not, it's totally fine. But I saw it on Drudge, right? And then I saw it on this stupid Washington Post article reporting from San Diego. Of them cutting holes in the border wall. So they're doing this, and it's like the liberal media, Washington Post, Jeff Bezos' blog, right? Jeff Bezos being the Amazon owner, the richest man in the world who hates Trump, stupid guy. They're cutting through the steel and concrete bollards in just minutes and pushing their drugs through, pushing people through, and all that stuff. But it's kind of like they want that to happen. And it's like they don't want us to be able to watch their walls. And I thought that walls didn't work. If the walls don't work, then how come they had to cut through them? Yeah, there it is. There's an example of them cutting through. And I'm not sure where exactly that was, but that was an example. The Border Patrol or the people who built this wall already knew that this stuff could happen. But it's about deterrence, right? And it does deter them from coming in by the thousands, because they were coming in by the hundreds and by the thousands on a monthly basis, daily basis by the hundreds, and tens of thousands sometimes. And we have untold numbers of people, illegals, coming in here. So do the walls work or not? Yes, they work, but they are able to cut through. But that means we need men on the borders to watch it. And then maybe we can connect those, show that picture again. See, what they would do sometimes is just make one cut and then push. But then they made two cuts to pass the drugs through, I guess. Or, I don't know, maybe they have like a pad that the human body goes through too. But if they make connections, then they can't push the single thing all the way. Anyways, that's just physics. Oh no, engineering, right? Whatever. But Trump is defending the integrity of the design, saying that you can cut through practically anything, and we will have a lot of people watching. And we should have, like, security cameras and everything. It was never just the wall, it's going to be everything. But these people are so dishonest, they think, oh, Trump said it's just the wall. Just the wall is going to make it, and it's going to be impenetrable. These media are very dishonest and undermining, and they'll try to get the people who are hawks on the border to go against Trump. Trump is not doing what's right. He's letting the wall. He's built a cheap wall, and it's getting blah blah blah. But they're not really being honest. So don't fall for that. A lot of people fell for one of my favorite callers fell for the Trump University thing. That Trump University was supposedly cheating its students. But that's going to happen amongst, you're going to get people who complain. Anywhere you go, you're going to get people who complain and lie and smear all the time. And on top of that, you're going to get people that already just naturally hate Trump. And especially his politics, because a lot of these people that went to Trump University didn't know about Trump's politics. They thought he was just a centrist guy, which he kind of is, to be honest. Centrist, kind of on the Constitution, I guess. Some people don't like that he's doing certain things like this vape ban and things like that. Cut him some slack, though. He's trying to save the kids. I don't know, man. It's crazy. But in the past, it has been Mexican men coming into the country, and some Guatemalans, and they would claim to be Mexicans, so that they get shipped back to Mexico and not all the way back to Guatemala. One of them came into my parents' house when I was a kid, because my mother forgot to lock the garage door, so he walked right in, found the parents' room, and then I've told this story before. This Guatemalan guy, or we think he was Guatemalan, came into, and we're not exactly San Diego. We're up in L.A. area, L.A., Temple City, El Monte, right near Pasadena. He was not short to me. He was dark. But anyways, this Guatemalan guy, we think he's Guatemalan because the neighbor talked to him about the different culture, the food and things. And so the neighbor is Mexican, or American, but Mexican. And the neighbors talked to him after the fact in the morning. And it turned out that he seemed to be more Guatemalan, but he kept on insisting that he was Mexican because when they deport these guys, because they were deporting them back in the 90s, they deport these guys. They weren't deporting enough of them. But anyways, they deport these guys. They'll deport them to Mexico rather than Guatemala, which is much further away. Then you have to trek all the way back up to America through Mexico from Guatemala. What a pain, right? So just say you're Mexican. But most of these people were single Mexican men who would come up here, work, send half their paychecks home, and live in a little studio or bedroom that somebody would hole you up in. And they also sell drugs, not just working, also selling drugs. Like a lot of illegals that I knew would work. Yes, they would work day in and day out, or pretend to work sometimes. And they would also sell drugs. Or some of them would kind of get away from the selling drugs stuff too eventually, as they grew more mature. But they would still come in illegally, pretend they were here as tourists. They would get their work visa. It would run out. They would still go back and forth as needed. Have homes back over there in Mexico. Their kids would love them and want them, but they wouldn't see them because they would be working here. Oh, I'm just coming here for a year or a few years. They end up staying here 15, 20 years. Talk about these people pretending to care about families getting broken up. Families have been breaking up just so that the men could come up here and work, get the easy money, send it back home. They remittances, right? Trump wanted to tax the remittances, and it's a mess. But now things have changed a bit, or at least some of the demographics have changed a little bit. Now they have, remember during the Obama administration, unaccompanied alien children, UACs. And some of these were not children. They were like grown adults who would say that they're 17. They would be going to high school looking like they're in their 20s and having sex with some of the girls is a mess. But I guess they would just say they were that age. So some of them would call themselves children and dreamers and stuff like that. And then there's also these so-called families. But very rarely do you see a father and mother with kids coming, as if we would even accept them either. We wouldn't. We shouldn't. But now, like, you see a record number of non-Mexicans, because they're coming up from El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and a record number of so-called family units, which is women and children or men buying children to bring up there, because if you come with a child, then they're going to have to let you in more on like humanitarian grounds. You don't get kicked right back over because, oh, what about the children? Stupid. So now the Border Patrol is having to act like they're a so-called humanitarian group, and it's so wrong. Between 2009 and 2015, the average number of non-Mexicans apprehensions were 1,500 a year, supposedly, right? But now it's like 10 times that almost. Oh, 20 times that almost. 27,255 non-Mexican arrests. But it's still a whole bunch of Mexicans coming up. So they're just because the numbers have shifted a little bit, it's still a bunch of Mexicans too coming up. And it has doubled like over the past couple of years. Because the pretense is that they are having all these problems with these gangs. They can't take care of their own country, so they're fleeing it. Gangs and drug wars and teenagers. Gangs are extorting local businesses down there in Central America. This is the story, right? And then the media, of course, unquestioningly believes what these people say. But you don't know that what they're saying is true. Teenagers recruited to join gangs, and those who refused to join threatened with death. That's crazy, but doesn't mean that we need to be taking them. Go somewhere else, fix the place, fight back, learn something. I don't know, but it's ridiculous. And they pretend like they're requesting asylum here. We don't need to be accepting asylum. Remember when we let Ilhan Omar in? I don't know if any of us remembers when that happened, but she was let in at age 11, and now she's creating mess in our government. These people come here as refugees, and then they stay and become so-called citizens and become anti-American people. And so, like that guy was talking about with the Bolsheviks, came as refugees into these countries and had these communist revolutions. They're doing the same thing here, and then the dumb whites who are growing up, going to getting so-called educated, are getting brainwashed against America too, and against white people. What a mess. And then you have dumb guys like the Rob Smith saying that those are white supremacists. I'm always going to push back against them. So wrong. Anyways, guys, I'll talk to you tomorrow on the Hake Report, thehakereport.com. and Jesse Lee Peterson Show, JLPtalk.com. Thanks, guys. Take care.